Cowher is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But should he be? Hi, I'm Marky Billson, and my perspective is pretty knowledgeable because I covered Bill Cowher during the Pittsburgh Steelers' last losing season, 2003. I was a stringer for the Johnstown Tribune-Democrat, and a couple of times in press conferences, Bill Cowher ate me for lunch without going into a lot of detail. And after that experience, though, I resolved that would never happen again. And although I've been yelled at and I've gotten some coaches angry during press conferences, which, by the way, isn't necessarily a bad thing. It means you're asking challenging questions. I don't back down. But Bill Cowher was a special kind of personality, and to be honest with you, there are some very good, by doing that to me, probably made me into a better reporter. So I could see where he would have that impact on players as well. However, I don't think that he was as belonging as Jimmy Johnson. Now, by the way, I do wonder a little bit if, because Cowher and Johnson are both studio analysts, if this might be one of the reasons the Centennial Committee chose them to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. After all, you could have the very memorable moment on the pregame show where they'd be presented and told right there on live TV, hey, you're going to Canton. Can't do that with Buddy Parker. But you look at the other coaches who are up for potential enshrinement, and yeah, I can see where Cowher would make it ahead of them. Don Coryell, for instance, never won a title. Buddy Parker did, and of course was an extraordinary coach in terms of wins and losses with the Detroit Lions, and had the most success with the Steelers franchise, maybe Jock Sutherland in 1947, but those 60s Steelers teams, early 60s Steelers teams in 62 and 63 was probably the high point of the franchise before Chuck Noll came over and the Immaculate Reception and such. Buddy Parker, however, did jeopardize the Steelers' future with those 2 seasons by trading away tons of draft choices. In fact, the Steelers didn't have a draft choice for the first 8 rounds of the 63 draft. That's how many, George Allen of his day, only to the nth power and all this. Something else that is probably the reason why Buddy Parker is never going to make it. There are a lot of allegations of racism during Buddy Parker's career. Read the book Confessions of a Dirty Ball Player by Johnny Sample. He is not a fan of Buddy Parker. Let's just put it that way. Dan Reeves also never won a title. Dan Reeves can coach my team. Dan Reeves is a good coach. Dan Reeves went to 4 Super Bowls, but unlike, say, Marv Levy, who the only reason he didn't win one is a field goal went wide, well, Dan Reeves didn't really, those teams didn't really do all that well in the Super Bowl that he coached in there. I do like Dan Reeves, though. I think he was a fantastic coach, won everywhere he went, and I think there's something to be said for that. You could have put in Dick Vermeil. Tom Flores, I was surprised, didn't make it over Bill Cowher because Flores had won 2 Super Bowls and Cowher just one, but Flores didn't have the lengthy career that Cowher did. Mike Holmgren, yeah, you could choose him, but wait a minute, Bill Cowher beat him in a Super Bowl. They both have 1. Well, those are the coaches right there. So I can see where Bill Cowher would make it, but I do think there is an argument that could be made instead for Vermeil, and I do think there's an argument that could have been made certainly for Tom Flores, but Cowher on TV, and like I said, he made me a better reporter by, calling me out and not treating me all that well in some press conferences. But then again, let's look at his record with the Steelers. I can remember his very first game. It looked like the Steelers were a going nowhere franchise at the time. They fell behind the Houston Oilers, who were the pick to go to the Super Bowl in 1992 on the opening day, 14-0. Looked like, oh boy, here we go. And then calling for the fake punt. Pass to Warren Wilson, setting up at the 1, and all of a sudden the Steelers were on their way. They came back to beat the Oilers that day, went on to win the division, went on to have the top record in the AFC that year, and this after 7-9 the year before. You see the Chuck Knoll, Football Life special that the NFL Network put out, and Marianne Knoll, his wife, said he retired, did Chuck Knoll, because he said, I got a Super Bowl team here and we're 7-9. Well, after he retired, Bill Cowher did take that team to the number 1 seed in the he brought in Bill Parcells before, and then just, battle of egos, and all this Parcells was gone in 2 years. Now, the only other thing I can say about Bill Cowher, about maybe he shouldn't have made it, is remember, this was the guy that did want to take an offensive lineman over Ben Roethlisberger. And if it's not for Ben Roethlisberger, Bill Cowher isn't in the Hall of Fame. But like I said, I know how he treated me a few times in press conferences, and although I don't really appreciate having coaches snap at reporters in press conferences, give you an example once. I asked about Veron Haynes, running back of the Steelers, called him Veron Hayes, and he went, "Who?" and just made me a stuttering fool. Steve Spurrier once said mediocre players don't want you to be hard on them, but good players do. Bill Cowher wasn't my editor. But then again, yeah, I should have said Haynes, not Hayes. Small thing, but in the future, made me a better reporter. So from that aspect, maybe Bill Cowher does deserve to make the Hall of Fame. I'm Marky Billson.